John Beaudin, Rock History Book. How are you? Hope you're having a good one. Remember, subscribe to the channel, like our videos, share them on social media. We always enjoy doing these lives. Interesting tidbits in the history of rock and roll, and it's never ending. There's so many interesting little facts about some of our favorite bands, and it's kind of juicy stuff, and I like doing it all the time. First of all, I want to say Mark Stein of Vanilla Fudge, their vocalist, and Carmine Appice will both be on this video. They're going to contribute to this video and talk about early Zeppelin, because remember, they were there for the first U.S. Led Zeppelin show, and they made a big difference, and we're going to talk about that. Oops, hold on. I put my volume up on my device so I would be able to see the comments coming up. I want to thank Matt Wardlaw of Ultimate Classic Rock. We cherry picked from his article, and this day in music history. Shall we get going? Okay, it all started with Jeff Beck, who was canceling his North American tour. Now, he was managed by Peter Grant, who was also managing a band that was previously known as the Yardbirds, since their guitarist, and you know this guy, Jimmy Page, was at that point the last member of the band still standing. So it was mostly the new Yardbirds that they were calling them. Grant thought bringing now called Zeppelin Band now to North America, he thought that'd be a great idea. Peter Grant, and there he is on the right-hand side with Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck on the far left. Peter Grant and the band Vanilla Fudge thought that could happen. Now, concert promoter Barry Fay wrote in his memoir, Backstage Pass, that he received a call from Vanilla Fudge's booking agent at the time. His name was Ron Terry. That was a week before this big show was supposed to happen with Spirit, which, remember the lawsuit with the Led Zeppelin Spirit thing. Long story, but anyway, he was begging them to add Led Zeppelin to the show. But the problem was the show was already sold out. Why add another band when it's already sold out? And the date, by the way, was in Denver. Now, Fay at first said, I'm not going to do this. Why should I do this? I mean, this show's rocking it. We're ready to go. Everything's cool, right? Anyway, Zeppelin ended up being on the show because Barry told him, he says, this group is called Led Zeppelin, man. They're going to be huge. So there you go. Then there was another call, and this time he basically said, listen, Vanilla Fudge has agreed to give $750 of their money for you to give to Led Zeppelin so that, Led Zeppelin can be on this show. We need to get them on the bill. So that's kind of what happened. Led Zeppelin were there in the beginning of the show. It was December 26, 1968. First Led Zeppelin show in North America. And the new album, the first album, wasn't even going to be released for another month, January 12th, 1969. At first, the people in the audience, these groups of people in the beginning were saying, bring on the fudge. But, of course, Led Zeppelin got on there and did what Led Zeppelin does best. And they won over the crowd. Hi, everybody. We didn't have Friday Night Live. We're going to continue here with some great interviews about the beginning. Happy New Year, John David Smith. Clyde's dad noticed a notification and had to join in. I was at the first ever concert in Denver. What? We have a winner. Oh my God. Clyde's dad. Wow. Tell us more. Tell us anything else you remember from the show. We're going to have two people as guests, Mark Stein, Carmine Appice. I interviewed both of them, and they talk about that early Led Zeppelin experience. Let me just pull that up. And you can give your comments after that. Sorry, I was stumbling in the beginning because I'd lost my notes. I'm going, well, that's professional. Okay, first of all, this is from November 2020 when I talked to Mark Stein. He's a very serious guy. But he's a great interview, and he's a nice guy to interview. Mark Stein talking about their early stages and seeing Led Zeppelin, being able to see them just on the side. A lot of people were talking about the fact that Robert Plant,
Yeah.
Jimmy was different. Jimmy had been a session player. A lot of people talked about in the beginning, and I didn't get that because I only, again, because of age, got them into him later, but that he wasn't refined in the beginning. Like people balked at Robert Plant being in this Yardbirds-ish
Well,
kind of band.
when Zeppelin first, I don't want to sound condescending, but if that's the word, but when Zeppelin first opened for us in the beginning, they were just, well, we were all kids, but we were probably the most intense live band in America at the time, 1968. Anybody that was around and saw those concerts back then. And when Zeppelin opened for us, they were just wet behind the ears. And I used to
What did they
talk to
tell you
Robert.
about? Let me interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What did they tell you about this band that was opening? Okay, this band, what did they tell you? How did they introduce the fact that this British band was trying to break into the US? How did they present that to you guys?
I was at my manager's house out in Long Island one night, and our agent by the name of Ron Terry was there, and he said this band called Led Zeppelin is going to be opening for you, and you know, told me, obviously Jimmy Page was with the Yardbirds, but Robert Plant, and John Bonham, and John Paul Jonesy they were unknowns in America at the time, and Jimmy came over to America and he put this band together. He called it Led Zeppelin. We became label mates, and he said, these guys are going to open for you. And he played some of the tracks for us before the album was out. And the first song I ever heard by Led Zeppelin was You Shook Me that night. And I was like, wow, this guys sound amazing, And that's how it started. And we started playing shows in the Northwest, and bang, 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 dressing door, knock, and it was Bonzo, John Bonham said, is it all right if I come in? I want to meet you guys. And they all were behind him. And we became we got on great. And I thought these guys were like, wow, these guys are really cool.
Well, they must have been intimidated by you guys.
They were in the beginning. I mean, I used to tell Robert Plant, don't get mad at me, Robert, but what's true is true. I mean, we were kids. I used to tell him, you got to move a little smoother on stage. You got to move a little more. And I remember telling Jimmy Page that you got to get bigger amps for your guitar. It's the truth, man. It's so weird, but I mean, after about 4 or 5 shows, these guys got it together so fast. And I mean, by the second tour, they were just so amazing. They were the most passionate rock and roll band that ever lived. If anybody saw Zeppelin at that time, I remember telling their wives and girlfriends that second tour, I said, your guys, they're going to be bigger than the Cream before you know it. Because Cream was the big arena band back then. The big, so obviously they became who they became, and it's an amazing story. I remember hanging out we're at Tim Bogart's house. He used to have an apartment by the river on the Jersey side of New York, the Hudson River. Zeppelin used to come up there. We used to, get loaded, drink, and we used to listen on an old stereo. We'd listen to their first album, hanging out together, and just having a great time, So when we had a lot of fun on the road together, and suddenly they just took off to lands that were unknown. It became so huge, so fast. Yeah. And I remember it really bothered me because it was like losing a girlfriend, It was like all of a sudden they got married to the king, They became so huge and so rich so fast. And they were gone.
Did you ever talk to them after that?
Oh yeah. Sure. I mean, I jammed with Zeppelin one night. I remember seeing John Paul Jones in Malibu. I was driving down the street in the 70s, and I recognized him. I jumped out of the car and went into the house. And at the time, Robert was in a motorcycle accident, I think, around 70, what was it, 75-ish?
Yeah.
He was there in a whole full leg cast. And anyway, they invited me down to a rehearsal in LA that night. But don't tell anybody we're here. I said, I won't. So I went down and I ended up hanging out, and we actually jammed that night. That got around real quick. That was pretty cool. And then next time I think I saw Robert was, I think it was at the Atlantic 40th anniversary in '88 at Madison Square Garden. We were all hanging out. that was an amazing rock and roll week. So yeah, got a lot of history here, my friend. You know,
No kidding.
Like crazy.
Interesting clip, huh? Mark's a unique character to interview. And I know people were not necessarily complaining. They were saying, well, he doesn't smile very often. Who cares? Does it matter? I mean, like he said, there's a lot of history here, my friend. Well, being there in the beginning of that, and by the way, Clyde's dad, thank you for your comments on early Zeppelin. The fact that he was there the first show in Denver. And they're yelling out, that what were they yelling out? Bring on the fudge. They wanted vanilla fudge. They didn't want this unknown band. No one knew who they were. Jimmy Page, from the Yardbirds. And then he was calling the early Led Zeppelin the new Yardbirds, but that quickly changed to Led Zeppelin, or else, and I'd lost my notes. My computer completely went dead. Hold on. Do I have it here? Yeah, here it is. Look at this. They were calling Led Zeppelin Len Zeppelin, right in the middle. Led Zeppelin. There you go. You're going to get your money's worth with Len Zeppelin. Oh, God. Crazy. We have Carmine Appice coming on now. I know doing these videos during the holidays is always a iffy thing because, well, everyone's really, really busy with family and friends who are partying and plus it's Friday night. But this is a big part of history and a big part of our channel, and I love Led Zeppelin. And we're going to put Carmine Appice here. Carmine, when I put these clips on previously on our sister channel, some people were getting on Carmine because Carmine they thought was taking too much credit as far as drumming. But remember, Carmine, when people saw Vanilla Fudge on the Ed Sullivan Show with You Keep Me Hanging On, their version, people were transfixed by the fact that no drummer had done what he seemed to be doing in rock at the time as far as being such a progressive drummer. And he really was. So first we're going to play Carmine talking about Bonham going to his drumming clinic and the fact that when you have John Bonham going to your drumming clinic, and I tell that to Carmine.
And this is a tip of the hat to you. When John Bonham in Jersey comes up and shows up for your drumming clinic, I mean, hey, Carmine, I know you were friends, but, I mean, that's something that shows that, wait a minute, he's coming to your drum clinic.
Yeah, I know, but you got to understand something. He wasn't the icon he is now. He's the icon he is now because he died at a young age, and the records still continue. I mean, Led Zeppelin's still the biggest band on the radio. I think Queen is starting to catch up to him now after that movie, because I'm hearing Queen all the time on the radio now. I mean, it's good for guitarists, without doubt. And I talked to Brian on email, and I told him I was going to release it. He said, good luck. Because there was a time in the 90s around the time we did guitarists, where he wasn't playing hardly ever. And we went to see Aerosmith, and he said, man, I really miss playing. And I said, yeah, I know what you mean. I said, but I've been playing a bit. You haven't. And I said to him in the email, I said, man, you came back with a vengeance. I said, you guys are doing residencies. You got a movie. You're touring the world. We played a gig at Sweden Rock Festival with them. It was in Ella Fudge 2 years ago. But I couldn't. We were just finishing. And I couldn't get back to see them because there's the distance of where they were versus where we were. And we had to leave, and so I never got to say hello. But they're doing amazing. And he said, yeah, I know. I've been blessed having a second career. I said, I've been really blessed. He says, I'm so thankful for it. He's such a nice guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's an astronomer. He's a doctor of astronomy.
No kidding.
He wrote a book called The Big Bang, or Bang, I think it's called.
Yeah.
A huge book with two other astronomers. Go online and put in Brian May, the astronomer.
Yeah.
And talk about.
Yeah, we're going off on Brian May on that one, and I was set up to talk to Carmine Appice again, and then it fell through. But I think in the new year we'll probably set something up where we can actually see him. At that time it was pre-COVID, and everyone was doing phoners. We didn't like doing phoners. We have, of course, a YouTube channel, a fairly big YouTube channel. Our sister channel, Rock History Music, is at 108,000 subscribers. So at that point, I didn't pull the old, hey, we're a big channel, we need you. And we still don't really do that for the most part. We've turned down a few interviews that were just phoners, but they were smaller artists, and we like to have people on. So what happened after people were yelling out, put on the fudge, or we want the fudge, or bring on the fudge, and that first show, slowly Led Zeppelin, I wouldn't say slowly, Led Zeppelin just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where the other bands weren't showing up. It was basically Led Zeppelin. And when Zeppelin came back for another tour, at that point, they were just the kings of the world. They really were. And it got bigger and bigger. I mean, think about this. You got Zeppelin 1, and we know what effect that had on music. And then Zeppelin 2 comes out. I mean, Zeppelin 2 was a huge album. I wasn't a big fan of Zeppelin 3, but 4 is one of the greatest rock albums of all time. If not, some people just say it is. So it got bigger and bigger. We have one more clip from Carmine Appice. We're going to put it on for you. And this one, the full body workout and John Bonham adapting his triplet.
Yeah. Well, because Vanilla Fudge was the first band I ever had to put my whole full body motion into playing and getting the power from the body rather than just the wrists or the arms, because of the volume, And by necessity, I created what was called, heavy rock drumming, because everybody had these big amps, and the other guys who came up with me, like Ginger Baker, Keith Moon, Mitch Mitchell, they were all light players, They weren't really heavy, as per se, loud and heavy. I did that out of necessity, and then I got big drums thinking that bigger is louder, and it was, so I created this style for myself that worked with the volume that Vanilla Fudge played at. I didn't know I was creating something new, I was just doing what I had to do to get the drums out there.
Well, like you had said that when Bonham said, hey, I'm doing this little part, and all of a sudden he said, I got it from you, and then he played you the piece, and you go, oh, I guess I did that, but you were just playing drums at the time. You weren't trying to create something.
Yeah, because back in those days, we would have an arrangement to a song, and, the intros and different parts of the song were arranged, but the other parts of the songs were spontaneous playing, So when I went into the studio, I do the intro, and then I play a verse on something, and I just play whatever. I never really rehearsed to play the same exact thing every day like I do today. And I just happened to play that triplet once or twice, and I remember I used to do the triplet, once in a groove, but it wasn't done like the way Bonzo did. He kept repeating it over and over, one after another, which created that thing that he created. But it also reminded me of what Joe Morello used to tell me. He said, nobody has it all, we all steal from each other. And I agree with that, because we all take stuff and do it our own way. Some of my fills were taken from Max Roach, but done my own way. So Bonzo took that, and I didn't believe it. And he pointed out, I think it was on the Renaissance album where I did that. And I said, wow, I did do that. I didn't realize I did that.
There you go. Carmine Appice, Mark Stein, thank you for joining us on our little Led Zeppelin tribute to their first North American show in Denver. And we had Clyde's dad, one of our users, who came on here and said, you know what, I was at that first show, which is the coolest thing in the world. Jeff Beck cancels his concert tour. Of course, Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck were in the Yardbirds together. And then Peter Grant, who managed everyone, wanted to get them on the bill and did. It looked like it was going to happen. I'm paraphrasing what I just said for people who just came on. And at one point, one concert promoter tells a tour manager, Vanilla Fudge has agreed to give some of their money to Led Zeppelin so they can be on this show in Denver. Boxing Day, the 26th. And he says, okay. Words are exchanged. People, they're telling each other, Led Zeppelin's going to be huge. And indeed they were. Indeed they were. Thank you for, and I know it's, every time we do videos this time of the year, the viewership is quite down because people are busy partying with family, traveling, and all that stuff. But it happened, and we wanted to share it with you. Make sure you share our videos, by the way. We appreciate when you do that. Like our videos. I like it when people even like our videos when someone passes away. It shows they like the quality of our video. It's not about liking the fact that someone passed away. And people get that, and I'm really, really happy about that. And subscribe to the channel. Remember, we have another huge, all the links to our channels in the subscription. If you want to help the channel, there are links there where you can join our Patreon. We have tons of stuff locked and loaded in our Patreon right now. Anyway, John Beaudin, we will not be on tomorrow night for New Year's Eve, but we wish you a happy New Year's Eve. Stay safe. Love you guys, and thank you for coming on. Take care.